in the beautiful Rocky Mountains. I'm sorry it's taken so long for me to put stuff out, but I assumed you guys preferred me to do some outdoors things instead of sitting in my freaking house. That sucks. So I have two letters for you guys today. I have some kick-ass pictures, and then we're gonna go ahead and we'll do a cryptid of the week. I'm not really sure if I can classify that as a cryptid of the week, but we're gonna do a cryptid. So the first one is, it's a pretty cool one. This took place in California in 2007. This person was staying in a little den behind their parents' house. So kind of like, we call that like a mother-in-law house. I guess that's what we call it. I don't know if it's a California or Colorado thing, but we call those kind of things like a mother-in-law house. It was downpouring and I was in the shower when I clearly heard my little brother knocking on the front door and yelling my name. He was 3 at the time, and I rushed out to see why he was in the rain alone and knocking on the door. I kid you not, it took me 15 seconds to wrap a towel around myself and step out to open the door. When I opened the door, no one was there, just downpouring rain. So I get dressed and walk over to the main house and ask my mom why the hell my little brother was out in the rain by himself. She put her finger over her lips and whispered, "What do you mean he was out in the rain? He's been sleeping in my room." And sure enough, we went in there, and there he was asleep. I told her what happened, and she told me she had heard and seen things in the house as well. We finished talking, and I went back to the den. As you enter the den, in the far left corner, there was a tiny storage type space covered by a green sheet nailed to the ceiling. When I walked in, that sheet was floating about 2 feet off the ground, like someone was standing behind it, and the sheet was over their head. I started panicking, and I started to pray the Our Father, and as soon as I started, the sheet fell back to the normal position. I've seen other things too, and so had my best friend as well. We were in the den drinking one night, and he fell asleep on my bed. A few minutes later, after he got up angry, because he thought someone was tickling his feet and he thought it was one of us. He cussed us out and went outside to smoke a cigarette. About 20 minutes later, we went out to look for him, and he was sitting there talking to himself. When we asked what his deal was, he said he was talking to a woman dressed in white. We told him there was no one there, and he pointed to a corner about 2 feet away from us. Again, no one there. He swore she was standing there talking to him. Keep in mind, my stepfather's first wife had passed away in that house when we moved there when my mom had married my stepfather. So my question is, what do you guys think? Why do some, like, I guess spirits or apparitions, why do they always appear in white? Like, what is the significance, especially women? Like, what is the significance of like a woman in a white gown, or like the young girl walking in the middle of nowhere dressed in all white? What do you think that means? Is there some sort of like purity? Is there some sort of like, is that a good spirit? Is that a bad spirit? Like, what do you think that is? If you have any sort of, ideas or speculation, feel free to go ahead and leave that cabin. Hold on one second and I'll flip it around. It's kind of cool. This is where I'm filming at. It's like a old ruins of some sort. A little bit to read the next letter, which is a really interesting one. It takes place in New York. It's a town called Brewerton, and it was established in 1758. An old military fort was on this land to defend Albany from the British Army, and there is an old local cemetery called Riverside Cemetery. The tombstones are some of the oldest around, and there's many revolutionary patriots that are laid to rest there. Riverside Cemetery is on Catherine Road. I have an ancestor that fought in the Revolutionary War. I just learned that recently. Anyway, okay, so this person says I would go over to this little cemetery to do personal meditations or walk over there after drinking at my house, usually at night when nobody was around. one really vivid experience that happened here was super unsettling. The time was a few weeks away from Halloween, I believe. My brother and I were hanging out for the weekend, and I was telling him about the cemetery. It was that and this really old house that was close by, also on this Catherine Road. We had a few beers before, but we were not intoxicated, and I was super aware as to what was going on. We were sitting on a huge tombstone. I was sitting on a huge tombstone, and my brother and I were passing a bottle of Jim Beam black bourbon. I heard what sounded like a horse walking with a carriage. I was like, what the hell? And asked my brother if he heard this as well. He did not, but the horse carriage noise started again, and in fact, it seemed like it was passing around the cemetery to the front of the cemetery to enter. We went silent because we thought maybe my girlfriend was going to play some sort of a trick on me. She liked to do that sort of stuff. But then I heard a female's voice, like right next to us. I asked her, I called out her name, but there wasn't an answer. I heard this voice say something again, and it said, "Who are you? And what are you doing here?" But again, it was like it was right in my ear. I could feel whatever it was. I could feel her breath, and even to the point of where the voice tickled my ear. I sobered up really quick, and so did my brother. We hastily left the cemetery and started walking back to my house, which we weren't lucky after. Which we were lucky because it wasn't that far away. We walked past this decrepit old house, which no one had lived in for years. This person says they're going to message again and tell me about the house. So, my brother and I had to walk by this house, and he looks up to the third-story window, and then stops dead in his tracks and grabs my arm. I stopped and looked into the direction of the third story, and what I saw was so crazy and even more supernatural and paranormal than what had happened a few minutes before. What we were looking at was a huge purple orb ball of light just floating in the window. The house was totally black inside besides the floating orb. My brother was freaking out, totally terrified at what we were seeing, but for some reason I had started laughing because I was so amazed at what we were experiencing that night. It was so strange, and when I think back 25 years ago, I just can't believe it. My brother and I quickly walked home and told everyone at my place what had happened. There are many things that happened while I lived in that place, and I'd love to write you more and explain. So, I would love to visit that area, but it's just really cool because of the Revolutionary War soldiers in that cemetery. So, if you have experienced any sort of like crazy colored orbs, I would love to hear about that in the comments. I just had a super weird conversation recently about weird orbs. A family member actually saw an orb, and they told me it was like this big, and it was floating. They have a house in the mountains. It was floating in the air like that, but when they took video of it, they zoomed in, and it was literally like the profile of somebody's face. But it didn't just stay at a profile, like this face moved. So it was clearly like a face inside an orb, and this orb was white. So I just think that orbs have like different meanings. Like if they're white, maybe they're, I don't know, like they used to be a human, or they're a spirit, and I think that purple means something, green means something, blue means something. They all mean something.
This is a photograph I was sent that is pretty amazing in regards to photographs of UFOs. This person says, I captured this cigar shaped craft on January 13th, 2023, over Huntington, Long Beach Island, New York. They wanted me to absolutely use this on my page. They were told by an expert that it was a Pledian ship. They were in awe of the sunset, so that is the whole reason as to why they were taking the picture in the first place, because of the mountain-like peak-style clouds that, appeared in the sunset. They were leaving a diner with their mom, and they were just in awe of the clouds and such, so they stopped and took a picture, And as they were going over the picture later on, they zoomed in and were able to capture this UFO. So, what do you think? Would you, in your opinion, call that a Pledian ship? For our cryptid today, I went with something that could actually be real, but is, in my opinion, probably classified as a cryptid based on its massive size. So this is called the ghost deer of Northern California and is supposedly seen around the canyons of Mount Eddy, which is located in Northern California. So according to legend, when shot at, bullets will fly right through the deer or just all around miss it. This animal seems to appear and disappear with no traces of it whatsoever. Attempts have been made to track its prints and only to have found that they simply just end at one point. The ghost deer, according to legend, is a buck that looks something like a large elk with large antlers with at least 10 to 12 points, in contrast to the relatively small normal Californian deer. Most hunters believe it weighs. Now, I want you to think about this because your average bull elk can be, we'll say like 800 pounds. So they're saying that this deer is so damn big that it at least weighs 2,000 pounds. So that's a big damn elk. So with that being said, they're saying that it's either a massive animal or it's a ghost. So I had an uncle he's long passed away, and he lived up in Northern California. His house burnt down in a fire years ago. But anyway, he claimed to have seen a really huge white elk at one point. So maybe this really is an animal, and maybe there is like a herd that produces really, really huge elk up there. But I don't know. Maybe it's a cryptid, or maybe it's a ghost. So if you live in Northern California, have you seen, a massively huge white elk? So let me know.
Well, like always, if you guys have anything you want to share with me, it can be paranormal, cryptid, you're experiencing some weird, creepy crap in your house, just basically anything the supernatural. If you want to share that, you'll be 100% anonymous. Feel free to email me and we'll talk, and I will share with your permission. Yeah, it's crazy because it seems like I have a heightened amount of stories lately, and it's just, I don't know, something's going on. If you have some speculation or any ideas as to what's going on, I'd love to hear about it as well. But just know that I'm going to start doing more videos, and I'm super excited.